Some moments in wrestling are just that, moments. A great match, a title change, a memorable promo. They're flashes in time that we enjoy and then file away. But then there are the stories that simmer under the surface, the what-ifs that capture our imagination, stories of untapped potential, of dreams that were shattered, only to be forged into something harder and more dangerous than anyone ever imagined. This isn't the story of a debut you already saw. This is the story of a debut that could fundamentally alter the landscape and shatter our perception of what's possible. It's the story of how Arissa LeBrock, the daughter of Hollywood royalty, went from a forgotten prospect to potentially the most dangerous woman in professional wrestling. And it all starts with a dream that fell apart. So how does this happen? How does a name, once associated with high-fashion runways and celebrity life, become one of the most intriguing names in a sport built on grit and violence? The answer isn't a simple one. It's a journey that began not in the spotlight of WWE, but in the shadow of a crushing setback, crippling self-doubt, and a future that had all but vanished. To understand the competitor she is today, you have to understand the war that was fought just to get here. To truly grasp the magnitude of Arissa LeBrock's potential, we have to go back to December of 2019. The wrestling world was buzzing with the news. Arissa LeBrock, daughter of action icon Steven Seagal and supermodel Kelly LeBrock, was set for a WWE tryout at the world-renowned Performance Center. This wasn't just another prospect. This was a unique combination of Hollywood legacy and legitimate athletic potential. Arissa wasn't just a model. She was a dedicated practitioner of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, with a background in one of the toughest combat sports on the planet. It was a compelling package. The charisma of her mother, the combat sports legitimacy of her father, and an identity all her own. The WWE tryouts are a grueling, multi-day ordeal designed to push elite athletes to their absolute physical and mental breaking points. It's here that the company separates the hopefuls from the future stars. Arissa, with her BJJ background, was seemingly built for the grind, ready to prove that she had the grit to earn her spot. But then, disaster struck. Following the tryout, Arissa suffered an injury that forced her to step back from her wrestling aspirations. In an instant, the dream was on hold. The buzz fell silent, and Arissa LeBrock, the promising prospect, vanished from the wrestling landscape completely. In the information vacuum that followed, the internet did what it does best. It speculated. The narrative became that Arissa LeBrock had her shot, blew it, and disappeared. But the truth was far more human and far more painful. By her own admission, she entered a period of profound darkness and self-doubt. In a moment of raw honesty, she would later state, "I realized that I had become comfortable in the darkest, worst place in my life." It's a chilling statement. A dream deferred by a brutal injury had led to a place of accepted defeat. For all intents and purposes, her story was over. A dream can either be broken by the darkness, or it can be forged into something stronger within it. Just when it seemed her wrestling story had ended in tragedy, a lifeline came from one of the most respected figures in the industry, Dustin Rhodes. Known to millions as the brilliant and bizarre Goldust, Dustin is more than just a legend. He's the son of the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes. If anyone on this planet understands the crushing weight of a famous father's shadow, it's him. Dustin heard Arissa's story, the promising tryout, the injury, the ensuing silence, and saw the untapped potential. He extended an invitation for her to come to Austin, Texas, and train at his acclaimed Rhodes Wrestling Academy. This wasn't just an offer, it was a second chance when she thought they were all gone. As Arissa herself said, "When I got the call from Dustin, it was time for me to give every ounce of passion within me to professional wrestling." She packed her bags and traded the glamour of California for the grit of a Texas wrestling dojo. Here, she wasn't Steven Seagal's daughter. She was a student. She spent months rebuilding herself from the ground up, working with personal trainers to get her ducks in a row. as Dustin put it. She drilled the fundamentals, learning the craft from scratch. Most importantly, Dustin Rhodes taught her how to translate her legitimate combat skills into the unique language of professional wrestling. Her Brazilian jiu-jitsu was no longer just a line on a resume. It became the bedrock of her in-ring style. She learned to adapt her submissions and ground control for the squared circle, blending it with old-school psychology. Her training could even incorporate elements reminiscent of her father's Aikido, focusing on joint locks and using an opponent's momentum against them. It was all merging into a unique, dangerous hybrid style. Dustin was blown away by her dedication, famously predicting, "Pretty soon the whole world's going to be talking about Arissa LeBrock." After months of this transformative work, her moment of truth finally arrived. In March of 2023, Arissa LeBrock made her official in-ring debut at a Rhodes Wrestling Academy student showcase. It wasn't WrestleMania, but in front of a small, passionate crowd, she was no longer an injury statistic. She was a professional wrestler. Reports from that debut described a powerful and dominant performance. She had finally stepped out of her parents' massive shadows and into the ring on her own terms. This was the true beginning. So, let's fast forward. Imagine a world where Arissa LeBrock finally gets her shot on the big stage. The WWE Women's Division is ruled by the Nightmare, Rhea Ripley, a dominant, seemingly unstoppable force. She stands in the ring, the undisputed apex predator. The segment is over. But then, an unfamiliar, eerie music hits. On the entrance ramp, a figure emerges. She walks with a calm, unnerving confidence. The name appears on the Titantron, Arissa LeBrock. A wave of shock would ripple through the audience. This is a name many hardcore fans recognize, but one they thought was a what-if story. In this scenario, Rhea Ripley might smirk, seeing just another challenger. But as Arissa slides into the ring, she doesn't play to the crowd. She simply stands, her eyes locked on the champion. She's not dressed like a model, she's dressed like a fighter. The smirk on Rhea's face would slowly vanish, replaced by uncertainty. The world would be watching, holding its breath. What would happen next is why this debut would be so game-changing. It wouldn't be a typical wrestling match, it could be a methodical, terrifying deconstruction. Fueled by arrogance, picture Rhea Ripley charging forward with one of her massive clotheslines. But Arissa wouldn't brace for impact. She wouldn't duck. She could move with a serene, fluid precision, gliding under the strike. With an almost imperceptible motion, she could redirect Rhea's momentum, maybe using a classic Aikido wrist lock to send the champion stumbling. The crowd would be stunned into silence. This isn't wrestling as they know it. This would become the horrifying pattern of the encounter. Every power move from the champion would be met not with resistance, but with evasion and surgical redirection. A kick could be caught and twisted into an ankle lock. An attempt at the riptide finisher could be neutralized as Arissa shifts her weight, causing Rhea to lose her grip. She wouldn't be out-brawling Rhea, she'd be dismantling her, joint by joint. She would be using the core principles of martial arts to turn Rhea's greatest strength, her overwhelming power, into her biggest weakness. This style would be unlike anything we've seen in a WWE ring. It would feel legitimate, terrifying, and be a complete game-changer. Before we get into how a confrontation like this could end, if you're enjoying this breakdown of one of wrestling's most fascinating prospects, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. It lets us keep telling the stories that truly matter. In this hypothetical showdown, frustration would turn to desperation for the champion. Imagine Rhea Ripley tapping into her last reserves, charging forward for her devastating spear. This has to work. But for a martial artist like Arissa, it's just another opening. At the last possible second, she could take a small step to the side. Rhea would fly past her, crashing shoulder first into the unforgiving steel ring post. As Rhea stumbles back, Arissa would close the distance with a chilling calm. No finisher, no famous submission hold. Instead, She could simply place her hand on Rhea's shoulder and, with her thumb and forefinger, apply a sharp, sudden pressure to a specific nerve cluster at the base of her neck. Rhea Ripley's body would go rigid. Her legs would give out, and the mighty women's world champion would collapse to the mat, tapping the canvas in agony and submission. The referee, bewildered, would call for the bell. It would be over. Arissa LeBrock would have hypothetically defeated the unbeatable Rhea Ripley without a single traditional wrestling move. The arena would be in a state of stunned, deafening silence. A debut like that would send the wrestling world into a frenzy. It would be a masterclass in storytelling because it's built on a foundation of truth. Her 5-year journey from a real injury and a dark period of self-doubt to rebuilding herself at the Rhodes Wrestling Academy is a powerful, real-life redemption story. She wasn't handed a spot. She would have forged it through pain and perseverance. Second, it would introduce a completely new and legitimate fighting style to WWE. Aikido and BJJ in this context wouldn't be a gimmick. They'd be presented as a deadly art form that provides a logical way for her to neutralize a powerhouse like Rhea Ripley. It's a believable deconstruction of the classic power versus technique trope. Finally, it would create an instant main event star. By dismantling the most dominant champion, WWE would make an undeniable statement. Arissa LeBrock is a threat to absolutely everyone. She wouldn't have won with a lucky roll-up. She would have won with a display of utter dominance that left the champion looking helpless. Arissa LeBrock's journey is more than just a potential debut. It's a paradigm shift waiting to happen. It's the culmination of a real 5-year journey of pain, resilience, and reinvention. She went from Hollywood royalty to a prospect sidelined by injury, from the darkness of self-doubt to a grueling rebirth in a Texas dojo. She is no longer just Steven Seagal's daughter. She is a wrestler who has forged her own identity through fire. A debut like the one we imagined wouldn't just be shocking because it's a surprise. It would be shocking because it feels real. She has the potential to bring a level of martial arts authenticity and a compelling narrative that could change the women's division forever. So the question we're all left with is this. What do you think of Arissa LeBrock's potential? And now that you know her real story, do you think she has what it takes to make it on the biggest stage? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.